Have you ever wondered how far a mother's love can go? For one mother, it meant scrubbing floors and cleaning toilets, all to give her daughter a future she never had. This is the story of a sacrifice that was met with the coldest betrayal. Her name was Amina. Every single day, she tied her apron, grabbed her bucket, and worked as a maid. Her hands were rough, her back ached, but her spirit was fueled by one dream: her daughter, Sarah. Sarah lived with her grandmother in the village, while Amina toiled away in the city, sending every penny she earned back home for her education. Amina imagined a future where Sarah, educated and successful, would lift them both out of poverty. She dreamed of the day her daughter would say, "Mom, you can rest now." The years passed in a blur of hard work. Finally, the news came. Sarah had finished secondary school. Amina's heart swelled with pride. This was it, the first major step. She used her meager savings to travel back to the village, ready to bring Sarah to the city and enroll her in a top college. But when she arrived, her joy quickly turned to shock. Sarah wasn't there. The neighbors whispered, and her own mother, the grandmother, reluctantly told her the truth. Sarah had moved in with her boyfriend. Amina felt a cold dread creep into her heart, but she refused to let her dream die. She found the boyfriend's house and confronted a defiant Sarah. There were tears, arguments, and pleas. Amina practically dragged her daughter back to the city, her heart breaking but her resolve firm. She was determined to get Sarah into a prestigious medical school, a path that would guarantee a bright future. Amina pulled every string she had, using connections she had made while cleaning the homes of the wealthy. She secured a spot for Sarah, but there was a mandatory medical checkup before enrollment. A few days later, the school called. The results were in. Amina sat in the small, sterile office, her hands trembling as the doctor delivered the news. Sarah was pregnant. All her hard work, all her sacrifices felt like they were about to crumble into dust. Faced with this crisis, Sarah made a decision that would haunt her forever. Without a word to her mother, she terminated the pregnancy. She saw it as a roadblock, an obstacle to the life of success she was now being offered. Amina was devastated when she found out, but she buried her pain deep down, focusing on the goal. She paid the tuition fees, bought the books, and continued to work, her body growing wearier with each passing day. All she could do was pray that this was the last major hurdle Sarah, now free from her burden, threw herself into her studies. The years flew by, and finally, she graduated. A doctor! Amina wept with joy on graduation day, her worn-out dress a stark contrast to the crisp academic gowns. Sarah moved back in with her mother, and Amina, ever the provider, used her network again. She spoke to one of her wealthy employers and secured Sarah a well-paying job at a prestigious hospital. For a brief moment, it seemed like Amina's dream had come true. But the taste of success changed Sarah. After just 1 year of living with her mother in their small, cramped home, she decided it was beneath her. She found a posh apartment in a better part of town and moved out, leaving Amina alone once again. Sarah told herself it was for her career, for her image. She went on to earn a master's degree, her status growing with each new qualification. But as her professional star rose, her heart grew colder. She began to despise her mother. She was embarrassed by Amina's rough hands, her simple clothes, her job as a maid. When friends asked about her family, she'd vaguely mention her grandmother in the village, completely erasing the woman who had sacrificed everything for her. The phone calls became less frequent, then stopped altogether. When Sarah decided to get married to a wealthy surgeon, Amina wasn't on the guest list. She found out through a relative who saw the wedding photos online. Amina cried herself to sleep that night, clutching a faded photo of Sarah. As a little girl, Sarah showered her grandmother with gifts and money, painting a picture of a dutiful granddaughter, while her own mother struggled to make ends meet. Amina's health was failing, her body worn down from a lifetime of labor. She couldn't work as much, and some days she went to bed hungry. Meanwhile, Sarah would post pictures of lavish dinners on social media, completely oblivious, or perhaps indifferent, to her mother's suffering. The cruelty didn't stop there. Sarah, in an attempt to further distance herself from her past, started bad-mouthing Amina to the very people who had once employed her, the same people who had helped Sarah get her job. She painted her mother as a difficult, grasping woman. One evening, alone in her small room, looking at her empty cupboards, Amina collapsed in tears, whispering to the empty walls, "I wish I had never given birth to her." The pain of her daughter's betrayal was a wound far deeper than any physical ailment. Then Amina fell gravely ill. Neighbors tried to contact Sarah, but their calls went unanswered. Her messages were left unread. Sarah was too busy living her perfect life to be bothered with the woman she had long since discarded. One morning, a simple text message finally broke through her wall of indifference. It was from a neighbor. "Your mother has passed away." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Suddenly, the fancy apartment, the expensive car, the prestigious job, it all felt hollow. The ghost of her mother, the memory of her sacrifice, began to haunt her. But life has a cruel way of balancing the scales. Her perfect marriage started to crumble. The doctors told her she couldn't have children, the one thing her husband's family desperately wanted. The marriage ended in a bitter divorce. Then, at the hospital, whispers of her past, of how she treated her mother, began to circulate. The same bosses her mother had pleaded with, the same colleagues who had once admired her, now looked at her with contempt. An investigation into a minor infraction was blown out of proportion, and she lost her job. The woman who had everything was now left with nothing. She was jobless, alone, and wandering the streets, a stark echo of the poverty her mother had worked so hard to escape. She would find herself standing outside the cemetery gates, staring at the cold earth that held her mother. Overwhelming regret washed over her. She wished she could turn back time, to hold her mother's hand, to say, "I'm sorry," to say, "Thank you." But it was too late. The person who had loved her unconditionally was gone forever, and she was left alone with the crushing weight of her choices. This story is a heartbreaking reminder to cherish the ones who sacrifice for us. Let us never forget the hands that raised us.